If you are at all in the anime or manga scene, you know about the big three. But if you don't, there are three Japanese comics, manga, that dominated industry sales from roughly 2000 to 2015. I say 2015 because the Bleach manga ended in 2016 and the Naruto manga in 2014. Although, an incredibly strong argument can be made that their legacy is still reigning strong, with One Piece still a good 200 chapters from concluding, Naruto having a top-selling spin-off about his son going strong, and Bleach reviving itself with both confirmed new manga chapters and the long-awaited anime adaptation of its final arc, which I am so excited for, oh my lord. But this project is most definitely not supposed to be for me to gush over three of my favorite things ever. In fact, it's to complain. A lot of complaining about a topic that hits pretty close to home. If you can't tell by now, I'm a girl, and the big three are all known for having exceptional male writing, but the girls tend to get left behind. This has always bothered me and taken away from my enjoyment of something that I really wanted to enjoy. This happens in plenty of other manga and media, other than these three specific properties, but the big three are so widely known and have such a large cast of characters and influence that I'll have a lot of content to work with that will resonate with many people. This is a topic I care deeply about and one that I've seen plenty of other people express their opinions on. Now, before I start turfing at the characters, I'd like to say that if I say something bad about a character you love, I don't mean any harm by it. It's great that you can enjoy these characters and find comfort in them. Now, on to the fun part. We're going to go from best to worst in terms of female representation in my show. And most people who've read all the big three tend to agree Bleach has the best female characters. If we're being honest though, that isn't a very tall bar to cross. It has a plethora of well-written female characters like Rukia, Nobara, Harebell, and Nell, just to name very few. However, one girl whose treatment has always bothered me and taken me out of the story in the past is Orihime. Being a shonen main girl, it's basically a requirement that she has a body that makes me not want to eat for a week, and that on its own is fine. A girl character having a good body doesn't inherently sexualize her. If this were the case, every male character with abs would also be in trouble. Nice bodies are to be expected, albeit completely unnecessary, from a male author in a genre catered to teenage boys. The problem is the amount of focus on it. She's constantly being harassed by the male characters, such as when Kon jumps on her breast or when Ukitake has her wear dress that makes her breast pop out. This gross overly sexualization of her may be excusable if it weren't for the fact that she's 16. You heard right, 16. It's especially odd since there are at least 3 other girls her same age who are never treated like this. Maybe a comment here or there, but never to this extent. The best reason I can produce for this is that she's the main heroine, but it still baffles me. The excessive fan service removed me from an otherwise tense, interesting, and fun story, and I've heard others talk about how they feel the same way. Besides the annoying fan service though, all the Bleach girls, including Orihime, are well written. Yuriichi is an amazing mentor figure to the main group, and her relationship with Soifon is interesting, and it's really cool to see how they affect each other's development. Rukia is the first character Kubo produced for the story, and it shows. Seeing just how gracefully her character arc is handled, and just how much love and care is poured into every scene with her. Even Orihime's relationship with Ichigo is adorable, and she gets some really genuine moments from that and from outside the relationship. Overall, I think Tite Kubo does an amazing job with his character writing. The next part is the part that's going to hurt me, the One Piece section. I adore this manga with all my heart. I would kill and die for Robin, Nami, Hiyori, Perona, Kiku, Viola, and Vivi. That being said, I do have a bone to pick with whoever made the writing choices for a few girls. We're going to go through the ones I dislike from most to least offensive and or distracting. With that out of the way, let's begin with something that isn't too horrible but is still incredibly annoying. This dilemma is the princess problem, a phenomenon that causes the author to introduce a princess and use her as the driving emotional force of an arc, but makes that the extent of her character. I know I explained that terribly, but as an example, Princess Shirahoshi is one of the strongest driving forces behind Fishman Island, but for the most part she's completely helpless. This becomes extra ridiculous when we found out that she's an ancient weapon. Girlie could have solved this whole problem in 5 minutes. In her defense, though, I would also be rendered completely useless if I had a pedophile catfish stalk me to the point where I had to go into hiding for 10 years. A counter-argument to that, however, that element was completely unnecessary. It made everyone uncomfortable by unnecessarily sexualizing a character whose whole development comes from being confident in herself and her people. Also, she is 16 too. And that is one of the biggest reasons why people dislike Bushman Island, despite having tons of potential in exploring complex and important topics like racism. That and Hody is the worst villain ever, and it went on for 20 more chapters than it needed to. But I don't know, man, I've just read this stupid pirate comics 3 times. What am I doing? Shirahoshi isn't even the worst offender of this. Only the second worst. The worst will be brought up later, but I have problems I would like to address with her. The real problem is that this trope is that it happens every arc. Alabasta has Vivi, Dressrosa has Rebecca, Whole Cake has Pudding, Wano has Hiyori, and I'm sure if people wanted they could just keep naming princesses for me. It's annoying and feels like lazy writing. I'm Southern now. Given a few of these girls are very proactive, but never strong enough to handle the problem of their own, always needing some sort of assistance, mainly from Luffy, a man. You could argue that this means the story moves forward, but I think the story could still revolve around the Straw Hat saving nations, but give more princesses political influence, like Vivi calling the fighting to stop atop the bell tower. Boa Hancock. Speaking of strong women, well, Hayden, what a great segue. I'm so proud of you. Boa Hancock, the leader of the Amazon Lilies, a feared and isolated kingdom woman located in the Calm Belt, an ally of the world government because they are scared of her, an ex-slave who rose to power, capable of freezing an army with a single wave of her hand. And oh my god, she's lost everything that makes her cool because she has a crush on the main character. Boa Hancock. I love her, but I hate her. The main problem I have with her is that the story is about one Monkey D. Luffy and how he affects the world around him. And unfortunately for me, he affects Boa Hancock by taking away all of her femme fatale and replacing it with a lovesick idiot. This wouldn't be so terrible. I'm actually a fan of the soft spot trope, where one character is mean to everyone else except their love interest. I would adore the ship if it weren't for one antsy-weensy problem. She is 32, and he is 17. And no one better give me any of that, oh, he's 19, so it's fine. No, you are wrong, because the last time they spoke was chapter 527. I think. I checked, but I still might be wrong. They might have spoken somewhere in Marineford. And even if I was wrong about that number, it would still be pretty time skip. It feels gross and predatory, and even if they were to end up canon in the future, it would still be really weird. And one more thing is that I keep thinking about it, and I keep getting more and more upset. Without Luffy, Boa is such an amazing character. I get that he can be played up for comedic effect. Oh, the most beautiful woman in the world has a crush on this ugly rubber man, and he shows no interest. But it just doesn't work for me, and I'd prefer for her to stick to her femme fatale thing she has going on. She could still help Luffy and aid him in seeking to impel down, but instead of doing this out of love, she recognizes him as a powerful ally and sees the potential in him to be the next pirate king. You can still do the soft spot thing with her treating him like a spoiled dog, giving him whatever he wants, just in a motherly older sister way. She still fights with Smoke Art in Marineford because now she cares for Luffy like a younger brother and wants to see him succeed. For our final One Piece girl is the bane of my existence. The thing that fills my soul with so much anger that it gets me out of bed every morning. Rebecca. I hate Rebecca. Princess and Coliseum champion of Dressrosa. All wearing this, which I'll show on the next slide, but you can kind of see it here. And yeah, they say she's never been hit by anyone, but I'm honestly just in awe in how she moves in that, and even more surprised she doesn't have a giant gaping stab wound in her stomach. And in all honesty, though, we see yet another 16-year-old character wearing a completely inappropriate outfit, not even in a slightly empowering way, too. Just in a sad, gross way. This is her outfit because every time I think about it, I start to cry, and it's just so ridiculous. Just look at it. Why is she wearing that? She cannot be fighting in this. It makes me so upset. What makes the situation even worse, however, is that Rebecca has the personality of a piece of wheat bread. She's only used to act as character development for Kairos, which is horrible considering she has half of the emotional force of this arc. She doesn't change at all, barely makes any decisions for herself, and is constantly getting herself in a situation that she has to be saved because all she does is cries. And I'm supposed to feel bad for her? At least Shirahoshi she was likable when she wasn't sobbing. Rebecca is just completely insufferable all around. The idea of a strong female gladiator from a wrongfully disgraceful royal lineage fighting to be the final survivor of her family name with her entire kingdom turned against her is so intriguing. But they made her so overly sexualized that they forgot to add her personality, and honestly it's so disappointing to see. It's almost to the point where she ruins an arc that took more than 100 chapters to complete. Luckily, however, Lost side of the story with Corazon is much more interesting. Unluckily, this amazing character writing is for a male character. Finally done with the One Piece section. Now on to Naruto. With Naruto, you can honestly say something bad about every girl. Kishimoto, the author, even admitted in a post-chapter confessional that he doesn't know how to write girls. And man, is it evident. I don't have the time nor the sanity to go over the problems with every single woman in the series, so I'm just going to focus on our two heroines, Sakura Haruto and Hinata Hyuga, two extremely recognizable names in the anime community, and for two completely different reasons. Sakura. First, we'll start with Sakura, a character who I personally relate to and enjoy. Although just a quick Google search of her name will immediately tell you that's a very controversial opinion. Sakura, especially early anime Sakura, has two personality traits: hating Naruto and being in love with Sasuke. Since these two things make up 90% of her personality, they are played up to an extreme degree. For much of early Naruto, Sakura spent her time pining for Sasuke, to the point where the most important battle is between her and her best friend, /rough rival, /totally not her girl crush. The fight also isn't seen as interesting by many fans, including myself, because it's mainly just an average human fight, sandwiched between crazy, high-stake ninja battles. This problem of both her being overly infatuated with Sasuke and having not fun, interesting fights gets resolved both through her training with Tsunade, although she still lags behind her male counterparts in terms of depth and strength, mostly because she gets promoted to the role of healer. Now, I'm not out here trying to discredit doctors in the real world, but in doctor, becoming a healer basically means you've been diagnosed with the incurable disease of being a girl written by Mihashi Koshimoto. Every girl becomes a healer because practically none of them are seen as stronger than the men. With Sakura, this isn't necessarily a bad fate. She's still incredibly strong, and it gives her another goal other than marrying Sasuke, which is something she very desperately needed. But due to the fanbase seeing her as simply a healer, they never take her seriously. Next up is Hinata, who unfortunately has even less substance than Sakura in early Naruto and stays relatively consistent throughout. She's only there to be Naruto's love interest. Nothing more, and that nothing less might be wrong, maybe a little less. She gets the smallest bit of death when it shows that she's not living up to her family's crazy high expectations, but it's never really expanded upon. Instead, the story chooses to focus on her body and constantly compares her to the other girls. It hurts her already weak character and reduces her to nothing more than a piece of eye candy for the audience. And the one time she does get into a big important fight, she loses horrendously and ends up having to call for help. It's very rare for a girl to actually win a fight in the series, and it's even rarer for a prime motivation not to be a man. It makes it even more painful when you look at the men and see they all have complex characters and very self-fulfilling and satisfying motivations. It feels insulting to anyone watching and gets really old really fast. Finished. As you can see, female representation within anime and manga isn't always the best. Girls tend to have shallow motivations, get overly sexualized, and feel awkward to read. That being said, if you haven't read these stories, I heavily recommend them. I love how I just go and trash these. Now I'm like, yeah, these are the best things I've ever read. I don't think about anything else except for these. They're truly some of the best stories ever put to paper. I love their manga, and that's why I believe it's important to point out and analyze their flaws so we can better appreciate where they succeed. If we recognize these problems, we can work towards getting better female leads and side characters, which is a goal we've already made tons of progress towards. With characters like the Promised Neverland's Emma and Demon Slayer Shinobu, just to name very few, I see promise for diversity within influential manga, and I'm excited to see who I'll be able to read about in the future.